Hey everybody, MTG Orzo here with another EDH Commander overview, this time for Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. So, I knew I wanted to do a colorless deck, but I held off until Oath of the Gatewatch came out for Wastes to come out, because there's, having a basic land in a deck, can help. That's the wise words of today. So, I played around with 3 of the 4 different colorless Eldrazi legendaries that are legal. Obviously, Emrakul is not legal, but I played around with Kozilek, the original. I played around with the original Ulamog, and also with the new Kozilek. I haven't actually tried out the new Ulamog. Mostly because it's super expensive and the new Kozilek is not. So this is obviously it's a mono silver deck, mono brown, whatever you want to call it. It's got a lot of fun stuff in it. It's very fast. So yeah, let's go over the deck. You guys know how this works. Let's start with lands. We have Ancient Tomb. Taps for 2 Ninja Stars. We've got Arcane Lighthouse, because, it's basically a waste with an upside in this deck. So we have a lot of those. Like, if it's a waste plus something, it goes in the deck. We don't have a lot of ways to target things in here, but there's no reason not to run it. Blinkmoth Nexus makes a dude. It's another waste with an upside. Buried Ruin gets back an artifact. Command Beacon. Because if Kozilek starts getting killed a bunch, Command Beacon makes it easier. Ivugan is a very powerful card in this deck. It and Mishra's Workshop are the 2 most powerful lands in the deck, if that didn't surprise you. Makes all of your colorless Eldrazi spells cost 2 less to cast, and for 7 mana, it's a repeatable tutor for colorless creature cards. Foundry of the Council makes dudes. Ghost Quarter. Waste plus this would be a wasteland if I could afford a wasteland. Hall of the Bandit Lord gives haste, because there's sometimes you really just need to swing with your giant huge monsters the turn they come out. 3 life is okay, though it sucks having this in your opening hand, because it comes into play tapped, and then you have to pay more life than Ancient Tomb for less mana. And nobody cares if you're giving your, Mind Stone haste or something like that. Mare in the Moaning Well. Waste the sack stuff. Gain 12 life off your giant monster. Cast it again. Mirror Pool. New land from Oath of the Gatewatch. Enters the battlefield tapped. Add a Ninja Star. You can pay 2 and a Ninja Star and sacrifice it. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, which doesn't happen all that much. Or you can pay 4 and a Ninja Star, tap it, sacrifice it, put a token that's a copy of a creature that you control onto the battlefield. So that one's really cool, because that interacts with stuff even stuff such as Solemn, but it also has Duplicant, Oblivion Sower, stuff like that, Deceiver of Form, all of our really big non-legendary colorless creatures. Mirror Pool works really nicely with. Mishra's Factory. It's a man land, and it's shiny, and it's got cool Kaja, Foglio art. Mishra's Workshop, one of the most busted lands ever printed. Adds 3 Ninja Stars that you can only use to make artifacts. Reliquary Tower, you cast Kozilek a bunch, you might actually have a lot of cards in your hand, and again, it's a waste plus an upside. So this deck can run a lot of these lands because of the fact that its basic lands are actually almost always strictly worse than other lands that are printed, except for their basic land typing. So I run enough of the waste to make it worth using those cards, but you gotta have utility lands. Ruins of Oran Reef enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a Ninja Star to your mana pool, or you can tap it to put a 1/1 counter on target colorless creature that entered the battlefield. This card's not great. I think this would be better as just another waste, but I don't think I've actually ever played it, but just looking at it, it's just not exciting. But whatever. Sanctum of Ugin. So you can add a ninja star. Whenever you cast a colorless spell with converted mana cost 7 or greater, you may sacrifice it. If you do, search your library for a colorless creature card, put it into your hand. Very good. Normally, by the time you have 7 or more mana, losing this land is not a problem. You can grab some huge giant monster. Seagate Wreckage. Another new land from Oath of the Gatewatch. Adds a ninja star to your mana pool. You can pay 2 and a ninja star to draw a card if you have no cards in your hand. This card's good because it doesn't come into play tapped. That would have been a really easy thing for them to do. So having it not come into play tapped makes it a really good land. For the virtue that it's just a waste that can possibly draw a card. It's like the reverse Library of Alexandria. Not really, because you have to pay mana. It costs 4 mana to draw a card if you have 0 cards in your hand, but shut up. It fills a similar niche. Strip Mine. You know what it does. Temple of the False God is a slow ancient tomb. I don't think I've actually ever drawn this card in this deck, which is weird. Because I've played a lot of games with it so far, and I just never had it. Alright, then we got Thawing Glaciers, which is one of my favorite land cards because it interacts with wastes. So we run a bunch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We run 16 wastes, and that means we run 20 non-basics. And Thawing Glaciers, just especially the first early turns of the game, just goes and finds your stuff. So now we actually get to the real deck, the true deck. Shouldn't Kozilek Ted say. So 0 mana, we have Everflowing Chalice and Mana Crypt. Fast mana is fast mana. Like, I've gotten so many starts that's like, oh, turn 1, Ancient Tomb, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Everflowing Chalice, like, Gilded Lotus. Like, how do you come back from that? You don't. 1 mana, we have Expedition Map. Usually this goes and gets something like Mishra's Workshop or Eye of Ugin, depending on the situation. But, being able to get anything is neat. Mana Vault, fast mana. One of the few decks where I'm happy to have Mana Vault in my opening hand. Like, I usually, unless my hands are really good, I usually like to draw Mana Vault early as like a dark ritual, basically. Or later, so like maybe like turn 3 or 4 and draw Mana Vault to be a dark ritual into something bigger. Because I hate having it in my hand and then just kind of waiting to play it, like trying to figure out the right time. Because I never fucking untap Mana Vault. I just don't. I got Sensei's Divining Top, which does top things. Mid Soul Ring, which does broken things. We have Cold Steel Heart, more mana rocks. Defense Grid prevents, or doesn't prevent, but makes it harder for people to do stupid things on our turns. Because we don't have a lot of instant speed stuff. Mono brown. Grim Monolith, just fast mana. Now Grim Monolith sometimes I do untap because it doesn't have the upkeep restriction on the untap like Mana Crypt does or Mana Vault does. So Grim Monolith, sexy card. Guardian Idol, mana rock that's also a dude. Sometimes that's relevant. I am running a sword package, so having tiny dudes is pretty good. That's why I'm running some like suboptimal Eldrazi's, just so they can like carry a sword if they need to. Lightning Greaves, speaking of things that go on dudes, haste is just good. Shroud's okay, but haste is what we need. Mannequin, he carries a sword, adds a ninja star. Mind Stone, Prismatic Lens, just mana rocks. Scroll Rack can filter our draws for a turn or so until we find a shuffle effect. Alright, Basalt Monolith, another card that I usually don't untap. which is weird because I feel like I should untap this more than I should untap Grim Monolith, but I end up untapping this less. I don't know. They're both good cards. Burnished Heart now can go grab Wastes, which is really nice. A 6 mana Explosive Vegetation doesn't seem too sexy, other than the fact that you can easily get 6 mana on like turn 3. So, Darksteel Plate makes stuff indestructible. Metalworker is just bonkers. You can tap it, reveal any number of artifact cards in your hand, add 2 Ninja Stars for each one revealed this way. Because we're running not a full artifact suite, we're running a lot of colorless stuff, it's not as good, but you know, what are you going to do? Pristine Talisman is another Mana Rock, Worn Power Stone, Mana Rock, Unstable Obelisk, Mana Rock. At the end of this, I'm going to count how many Mana Rocks I have in this deck, because I haven't yet. Titan's Presence is a cool removal spell. As an additional cost to cast it, reveal a colorless creature card. Exile target creature if its power is less than or equal to the revealed card's power. So this lets you keep hands that have like Bane of Belaget in them opening, because like you're like, well, now I have a 3 mana hard exile spell for most of what they're going to cast. And then we have all 5 swords. We got Body and Mind, Feast and Famine, Fire and Ice, Light and Shadow, and War and Peace. Just to give our little dudes some reach in case we don't get a super fast start. Alright, now let's move on to more interesting cards. So we have Font of Mythos. Sometimes you need to draw more cards. Having your opponents draw cards is sometimes bad, and there are decks that I won't play this out into. But like aggro decks, I will play this into, because like just getting more cards means more ramp and more giant monsters for us. So what are you gonna do? Hedron Archive. It's a double Mind Stone, and it's 2/3 of a Hedron, Dreamstone Hedron. Null Brooch. Colorless counter spells. Especially if our hand's really low or empty, this becomes really annoying. Perilous Vault. Because sometimes you just need to get rid of everything. This can't hurt us. This is really just like a oh shit thing. Like, you're like, oh fuck, I'm gonna lose all of my artifact mana, but he's gonna kill me with everything, and then it exiles everything, so it's pretty neat. Solemn, our favorite sad robot, comes back to grab us wastes. Thank you, Solemn Simulacrum. Holds the sword admirably, blocks admirably, gets us land. It does so much. Thran Dynamo, Mana Rock. Tower of Fortunes, 8 mana, draw 4 cards. Seems pretty good to me. Warden of Geometries. This is another sort of it's suboptimal in this list, but it does add a Ninja Star and has Vigilance, and it carries a sword pretty well. So you slap a sword onto this and attack, and you can still tap it for mana. So it's pretty good. Oh, we forgot Palladium Mirror, but he's there too. He holds a sword and makes mana. 5 mana, we have Reality Smasher, Modern All-Star, Trample Haste. When it becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, counter that spell unless its controller discards a card. So this just smashes in over their stuff until they pitch 2 cards to kill it, which is really fun. Blink Moth Urn, beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase, it adds a bunch of Ninja Stars equal to the amount of artifacts he or she controls. Another card that you don't play against some matchups, like I would never play this against a Duretti deck, but I'll play this against like an Omnath deck. Gilded Lotus, the one situation where I think Gilded Lotus is worse than Thran Dynamo, because we don't need the colored mana, so it's just a 1 mana more expensive Thran Dynamo. Excuse me. Warm Pepsi at 11:07 in the morning. Love it. Memory Jar. This card is busted, but excuse me. But sometimes we got to draw 7 cards. Mind's Eye. Sometimes you need to draw cards. Like, I don't know. My five slot is not super interesting. So then we have 6 mana. We have Endbringer. Alright, so you untap them during each other player's untap step. So you can tap them to ping somebody. You can pay a Ninja Star, tap them, target creature can't attack or block this turn. It's pretty cool. And you can pay 2 Ninja Stars and tap them, and you can draw a card. So it's a 5/5 that's utility that you can, most of the time you're using it to draw cards, but sometimes you'll be using the other 2 abilities. So it's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool guy. Conduit of Ruin. You cast him. Search your library for a colorless creature card with converted mana cost 7 or greater. Reveal it, shuffle your library, and put that card on top of it. And then the first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. This card is pretty cool. This card curves really nicely into like your 9 drops, which is a weird thing to say. I ended up casting this card a lot. I see this card like probably the most out of all the colorless Eldrazi, which is nice. Like, he's a good one to see. Dreamstone Hedron, I believe, is our final mana rock. Duplicant, sometimes you gotta fucking get rid of a dude in colorless. It can also be fetched with Eye of Ugin, which is really nice. Gruesome Slaughter, the new, quote-unquote, what's it called? All is Dust. Until end of turn, colorless creatures you control gain fuck over your opponent. Oblivion Sower. And when you cast him, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of his or her library, and then you put any number of land cards from exile onto the battlefield under your control. So he's pretty cool. He's a pretty cool guy. Omen Machine. Alright, hold on. So now that I'm thinking about it, I need to put Urborg in this deck. Why? Because it lets me use my lands like Ancient Tomb and Hall of the Bandit Lord without paying life, and it also means there we go, Urborg's in the deck now. It also means that like if I get fetch lands off of a Oblivion Sower, I can tap them for mana. Alright, Omen Machine is one of my favorite cards in the game. Players can't draw cards. At the beginning of each player's draw step, you basically if it's a land, put it into play. If it's not, cast it right then. If you can't, exile it forever. So, most decks can draw cards faster than me, so put a stop to that. And it's not like I'm totally neutering my commander. Like, I wouldn't run this in Prime Speaker, but when I cast this, like, even if I don't draw 4 cards, I still have a 12/12 Annihilator 4. So, there's that. 7 mana, we have Deceiver of Form. At the beginning of combat, on your turn, reveal a top card of your library. If a creature card is revealed this way, you may have creatures you control other than Deceiver of Form become copies of that card until end of turn. You may put that card on the bottom of your library. So this gives you a pseudo scry every combat step, which is really cool. It plays really nicely with Conduit of Ruin, so you can like make everything an Artisan of Kozilek. Make your 4 dudes 10/10s with Annihilator 2. Seems pretty good to me. All is Dust, Supreme Wrath, just fucks over everybody but us. Bane of Balaged. When it attacks, defending player exiles 2 permanents he or she controls. So it's actually, this one is better than Annihilator 2 because it exiles 2 of the permanents, and Annihilator 2 always gave the choice as well. So this is a nice concession to Annihilator. It doesn't have any other abilities, but honestly, Annihilator is good enough. Karn, Karn answers lots of things. Not of this world. A lot of times in this deck, it is better than Force of Will. Counter target spell or ability that targets a permanent you control. Costs 7 or less if it targets a spell or ability that Not of this world costs 7 less to cast if it targets a spell or ability that targets a creature you control with power 7 or greater. So for a lot of our creatures, this just like, oh, they have the Swords to Plowshare in their hands. It's going to win them the game. No. Sorry. Don't touch my Kozilek. Scour from Existence. Exile target permanent. removal. Breaker of Armies, just a cool name. All creatures able to block do so. It's like a Taunting Elf if Taunting Elf was a 10/8. So, I like that. Ugin does Ugin things. Artisan of Kozilek, you cast him, get a creature card back, Annihilator 2. Very cool card. A powerful card. Void Winnower, that's a weird card. Opponents can't cast spells with even converted mana cost. 0 is even. And your opponents can't block with creatures with even converted mana costs. So, I don't know. This card's weird. I like it. I really like it. Endless One can be as much like. Usually I end up casting him as like a 4/4, and then he just gets bigger from there. Alright, what other monsters do we have? Just 3 more. We got Kozilek the Great Distortion, the new one from Oath of the Gaywatch. When you cast him, if you have fewer than 7 cards in your hand, draw cards equal to the difference. So he can. There are situations where he can draw more than Kozilek Butcher of Truth, but also he can also draw less. And he has Menace, which means can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. And discard a card with converted mana cost X, counter target spell with converted mana cost X. That has actually been kind of useful at times, especially if you can get if you have like Eye of Ugin out, which means that like you can just start cycling through all of your converted mana costs to get stuff that you can counter their spells with. It's pretty fun. Ulamog Vindicates, Indestructible Annihilator, Blightsteel, can win the game. So that's this deck. Excuse me. I'm gonna play some games with it. Hopefully I'm going to be better at uploading now that I'm moving back home soon, within the week. So, I will see you guys in the game.